Oregon just crossed a line that fire officials have been dreading all summer. The state has now burned nearly 1.8 million acres this season, and it's still only July. That puts Oregon on pace to break its modern wildfire record of 1.93 million acres, set just 2 years ago in 2024. And here's the part that should really concern you. Fire officials say the most dangerous stretch of the season, August and September, hasn't even started yet. Today we're breaking down exactly how close Oregon is to that record, which fires are driving the surge, what's happening across the rest of the West, and what's coming next. Let's get into it. As of this week, more than 30 large fires remain uncontained across Oregon, and large fires alone are covering over 1.1 million acres of the state. More than 12,000 people are currently working to contain these fires, according to the Oregon Department of Forestry. Oregon Department of Forestry. Public Information Officer Jessica Nojar put it plainly this week. It's rare to see this many acres burn this early in the season, and August and September are still ahead. That's the line driving today's update. Because normally the worst of Oregon's fire season is still to come, not already behind it. To put this in perspective, Oregon's entire 2021 wildfire season burned about 827,000 acres statewide. This year's total is already more than double that, and we're not even out of July. The current record, set in 2024 at 1.93 million acres, took the state a full season to reach. This year, Oregon is approaching that number with 2 of the traditionally most dangerous fire months still on the calendar. Let's walk through the fires actually driving these numbers, starting with the newest emergency declaration, Grasshopper Fire, Wasco County. This is the one to watch most closely today. The fire has grown past 18,000 acres with zero containment. Firefighters are focused on protecting homes in the towns of Pine Hollow and Wamak. The Oregon State Fire Marshal invoked the Emergency Conflagration Act for this fire, bringing in additional out-of-state resources. A U.S. Forest Service spokesperson said fuel conditions are exceptionally dry, even for a region that's always dry this time of year, and that dryness is arriving earlier in the season than usual. Roe Creek Complex, Wheeler County, still Oregon's largest active fire, now at 295,132 acres and 39% contained. This complex has been one of the defining stories of the season, and crews have spent recent days reinforcing control lines to keep it from pushing further into surrounding communities. Hay Creek Complex, Gilliam County, some real good news here. This complex has burned about 193,115 acres and is now 90% contained, a major improvement from where it stood earlier in the month. It's a reminder that even in a record-setting season, containment progress is still happening on individual fires. Akawa Butte Fire, Jefferson County, burning at roughly 27,433 acres, containment sitting at 10%. This fire has drawn significant resource attention given its proximity to residential areas near sisters. Coyote Fire, Crook County, in much better shape, 77% contained. Crews have used favorable conditions in recent days to lock down large sections of the perimeter. Henry Fire, holding at 50% containment, another fire trending in the right direction even as the statewide total climbs. Bench Fire, Jefferson County, one of the tougher ones right now, just 3% contained after burning over 60,000 acres, with crews using firing operations to build containment lines along the northwest perimeter. Firefighters spent recent days and nights working to secure and strengthen that line, and today's operations are focused on holding what's already been built. Shingle Fire, 6% contained. Another fire firefighters are watching closely as dry conditions persist across the region. Beyond these named fires, evacuation orders remain active in multiple counties across central and eastern Oregon, and people on the Warm Springs Reservation have already evacuated as fires threaten central and eastern Oregon communities. Thousands of residents across the affected counties remain under some level of evacuation notice, whether that's level 1, get ready, level 2, get set, or level 3, go now. It's worth remembering what containment percentage actually means here because it trips a lot of people up. Containment refers to how much of a fire's perimeter has a secured control line around it, not how much of the fire is out. A fire can sit at a low containment percentage for days without necessarily growing, if crews are holding the line. But it also means a fire like the Bench Fire, at just 3% contained, still has the vast majority of its perimeter without a secured line, which is exactly why structure protection remains the top priority there. Before we head north to Washington, let's talk about what all of this means on the ground for people actually living near these fires. Because the human impact here is significant. As of the most recent count, more than 6,200 people were under level 3 go now evacuation orders across Oregon, with another roughly 26,000 people under lower level evacuation notices. That's over 32,000 Oregonians whose lives are currently disrupted by these fires in some direct way. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality has an air quality advisory in effect for 13 counties: Baker, Crook, Gilliam, Grant, Harney, Jefferson, Malheur, Moreau, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, Wasco, and Wheeler, due to smoke from these multiple wildfires burning across southern, central, and eastern Oregon. That advisory remains in effect until further notice, and air quality in some of these areas has reached unhealthy levels, meaning DEQ is recommending that residents limit outdoor activity and keep children indoors when smoke is heavy. If you have a heart or lung condition, officials are urging you to follow your doctor's guidance closely during these smoke events. On the ground, structural task forces have been working to protect approximately 170 homes in areas like Antone Ranch and the Rattlesnake area, coordinating with wildland fire crews and ranch personnel to identify which structures need protection first. Fire officials say the work isn't just about stopping the flames, it's block-by-block triage, figuring out which homes can realistically be saved given the resources on hand. Travel through the fire zones has also become significantly more complicated. Highway 26 has seen repeated closures for public and firefighter safety. And motorists are being told to expect firefighting equipment and personnel working directly alongside the roadway in multiple stretches. The Oregon Department of Transportation is recommending anyone traveling through Central or Eastern Oregon check tripcheck.com before heading out, since closures can happen with very little notice as fire behavior changes. Beyond the roads, several public land closures are now in effect. The Sheetrock unit of the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument is under an emergency closure for public safety, and emergency fire closures have expanded across the Ochoco National Forest, restricting public access to all lands, roads, and trails within the designated closure boundary. A temporary flight restriction is also in place over the fire area around the clock, meaning even private aircraft and drones are barred from the airspace. Officials have been especially blunt about this one, since drone activity near an active fire can ground firefighting aircraft entirely and put both pilots and ground crews at serious risk. Smoke itself has become its own storyline this season. Smoke from fires like the Shingle Fire has been visible as far away as Prineville, Polina, Dayville, and Mitchell, cutting visibility on highways and pushing air quality into unhealthy territory for entire communities that aren't anywhere near the fire lines themselves. Officials note that smoke conditions can shift significantly throughout a single day as winds change direction, so an area with clear skies in the morning can see heavy smoke move in by afternoon. Oregon isn't fighting this fire season alone. Just across the border, Washington State is dealing with its own significant fire activity. And it's worth understanding how the two states' situations are connected, since smoke and resource strain don't stop at a state line. The largest fire currently burning in Washington is the Kaiser Canyon Fire on the Colville Reservation near Nispelem in Okanagan and Ferry counties. That fire started from a lightning strike and has burned approximately 126,000 acres, with containment at 16%. Forecasts of warmer, drier, and windier weather in the coming days could make containment efforts more difficult there. And crews are focused on protecting homes, communities, and critical infrastructure while they work to strengthen the lines already in place. A Level 3 GO evacuation order remains in effect for parts of the fire area, including the Columbia River Campground. Beyond Kaiser Canyon, wildfires have burned across roughly 200 square miles of eastern Washington this month, and at least 7 homes have been confirmed destroyed. More than 1,000 residents have been evacuated across the affected counties at various points. Smoke from these fires has blanketed communities including Moses, Lake, Quincy, and Soap Lake, prompting air quality alerts from the National Weather Service across 13 counties. Spokane has also seen smoke impacts drift in from fires burning to the northwest. Red flag warnings have been a near constant presence across eastern Washington this month, as temperatures climb into the triple digits and windy conditions repeatedly raise the risk of new fire starts. The pattern here mirrors what we're seeing in Oregon: dry lightning igniting new fires, followed by hot, low humidity conditions that let those fires spread quickly before crews can it. Ahead of them, zoom out, and Oregon and Washington are part of a much bigger national picture. The country remains at National Preparedness Level 5, the highest level on the scale, meaning firefighting resources nationwide are stretched about as thin as they get. Nationally, more than 43,000 fires have burned over 4.5 million acres so far this year, with roughly 26,000 firefighters and support personnel currently engaged in fire activity nationwide. To put that acreage total in context, that's already well ahead of where many recent fire seasons stood at this point in the year, and fire officials are watching closely to see whether the national total follows the same trajectory Oregon's has. To help close the resource gap, the National Multi-Agency Coordinating Group has mobilized 74 incident management specialists from Australia and New Zealand to support operations here in the United States. That's a notable level of international mobilization, and it reflects just how many resources are already committed across the Pacific Northwest. On the aerial side, military C-130 aircraft equipped with modular airborne firefighting systems, known as MAFs, have also been activated to help attack these fires from the air. 2 MAFS-equipped C-130s and their support personnel from the 302nd Airlift Wing out of Colorado are now flying out of Klamath Falls, Oregon. Additional MAFS aircraft from Air National Guard units in Wyoming and California have also been deployed to support operations out of Redding, California. This kind of military aerial support typically only gets activated when the wildland firefighting fleet is stretched thin enough that federal officials decide extra capacity is needed, and that's exactly the situation we're in right now. Fire weather conditions remain highly volatile across much of the American West, and the Southern Plains right now, and that volatility is a big part of why national resources are being deployed the way they are. High-risk burn environments and red flag conditions have become almost a daily fixture across multiple states this month. Not just Oregon and Washington. Beyond personnel, thousands of engines and hundreds of helicopters are currently committed to fire operations across the country, alongside multiple complex incident management teams working incidents in the Pacific Northwest alone. When you add up the domestic crews, the international specialists, and the military aircraft now in the mix, this is shaping up to be one of the most heavily resourced early season mobilizations in recent memory, which tells you something about how seriously officials are treating the trajectory of this season, not just the numbers as they stand today. So what's driving all of this, and what's coming next? Hot, dry conditions are persisting across California, the Great Basin, and the Southwest, as monsoon moisture weakens earlier than usual this year. Temperatures are running 5 to 15 degrees above normal across much of the fire zone, and that above normal heat is compounding already low fuel moisture across the region. There's also an ignition risk to watch closely today. Isolated and scattered dry thunderstorms are possible across the Great Basin and northern Rockies, specifically southern Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana. Dry lightning, meaning lightning without meaningful accompanying rainfall, is exactly the kind of ignition source that's driven much of the season's fire activity in the first place. A single lightning event can spark dozens of new fire starts within just a few days, if conditions are dry enough. And given how parched fuels are across the interior West right now, forecasters are watching today's storm potential closely. For Oregon specifically, none of this points toward meaningful relief. Drought conditions remain entrenched across much of the state. Fuels are exceptionally dry, even by regional standards for this point in the summer. And forecasters aren't showing a pattern change on the immediate horizon that would meaningfully slow fire growth. Overnight humidity recovery, which is often what helps crews make progress on containment lines, has been limited in many of the affected areas, meaning fires aren't getting the usual overnight pause in activity that firefighters rely on. Washington's forecast tells a similar story. Warmer, drier, and windier conditions are expected in the coming days, which officials say could make containment efforts more difficult on fires like Kaiser Canyon. When wind, heat, and low humidity line up at the same time, that's when existing fires are most likely to see rapid, sometimes explosive growth, even on fires that have looked relatively stable for days. The one piece of more encouraging news is that isolated wet thunderstorms are possible in parts of the Southwest and Colorado Rockies, which could bring some beneficial moisture to those areas. But forecasters are quick to note that thunderstorms in fire-prone regions are always a mixed blessing. They can drop helpful rain in one area while sparking brand new fires with dry. Lightning strikes in another. Here's why this record matters beyond just the number itself. Oregon's 2024 season, the current record holder at 1.93 million acres, was already considered a historic year for the state. Hitting that mark, or surpassing it, in a season where the traditionally worst months haven't even started yet, signals something more structural going on with fuel conditions and drought, not just a run of bad luck over a few weeks. If current pace holds, and forecasters aren't projecting any near-term relief, Oregon could break its modern wildfire record before August even ends. That would mean the state surpasses its worst fire season on record with a third of the traditional fire season still remaining, which is exactly the scenario Oregon Department of Forestry officials say they're bracing for. It's also worth noting what this means for firefighting resources. Heading into what's typically the most demanding stretch of the year, crews, aircraft, and incident management teams that would normally be held in reserve for the August and September peak are already being deployed at scale in July. That raises real questions about what capacity will look like if fire activity continues to escalate, as expected, over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's part of why we're seeing international crews and military aircraft brought in this early. Officials appear to be trying to build in additional capacity now, rather than waiting until resources are even more stretched later in the season. There's also a broader pattern worth flagging here. Officials on the ground have repeatedly described this year's fuel conditions as exceptionally dry, even by the standards of a region that's used to dry summers. That kind of language, from people who track these numbers year after year, tends to matter more than the raw acreage total on its own. It suggests the underlying conditions driving this season aren't just a product of a few unlucky lightning strikes, but a broader dryness pattern that could keep producing new, fast-moving fires well into the fall if it doesn't break. If you live anywhere near these fire zones, in Oregon or Washington, please stay tuned to your county sheriff's office and follow official evacuation guidance closely. Keep a go bag ready with essential documents, medications, and supplies. Know your evacuation zone number and identify more than one route out of your neighborhood if possible. Don't wait for a level 3 go now order to start moving. If you're seeing level 2 notices in your area, that's the time to start getting your household ready. For the most current official information, check INCIWeb, your county sheriff's office, and weather.gov directly, since containment numbers and evacuation levels can change within hours, sometimes based on wind shifts that happen with very little warning. And as always, most wildfires are human-caused and preventable. Fully extinguish campfires until they're cold to the touch. Don't park on dry grass. Don't discard cigarettes from a vehicle. And if you're towing a trailer, make sure your safety chains aren't dragging and throwing sparks, since that alone has sparked wildfires in past seasons. We'll have a full update for you as containment numbers change. And as we track conditions heading into what could be Oregon's most dangerous stretch of the season yet, like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an update during this active fire season. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.